This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and yes, you read that correctly. David Suzuki, in my view, is a terrorist after recently issuing a bomb threat on pipelines if the government doesn't act quicker on climate change. Here's the clip.
We're in deep, deep doo-doo, and they've been telling us, the leading experts, for over 40 years. This is what we're come to. The next stage after this is there are going to be pipelines blown up if our leaders don't pay attention to what's going on.
That's pretty straightforward and clear. This can't be interpreted as anything other than a threat to incite violence. This threat has even caused his own foundation to say that his words don't represent them. On Twitter, the David Suzuki Foundation said on November 20th at an Extinction Rebellion protest in Victoria, David Suzuki said, "Pipelines will be blown up if leaders don't act urgently to address the climate crisis." When David speaks publicly, he speaks on his own behalf, not for the David Suzuki Foundation. In an interview with the National Post, Suzuki said violence within the environmental movement is already happening, although he identified police actions against anti-logging protesters and anti-gas pipeline protesters as the culprits. Asked whether or not he would support the bombings of pipelines, Suzuki said, "Of course not. The violence is coming from the authorities, from the government, from the RCMP," said Suzuki. They're declaring war against those that are protesting. So they, the government and the authorities, have declared war, and his response is that they, the government and the authorities, aren't doing enough on climate change and need to do more or else? You see, the thing is, folks, David Suzuki doesn't actually believe that the government is the enemy. He thinks that you and I are. Here's a clip of David Suzuki in 1972 claiming that human beings are comparable to maggots.
You know, I study fruit flies, and I suddenly realized that basically we're all fruit flies. Like, you know, you're born as an egg, and you live in that egg environment, and your parents kind of cut out all the external crap that comes in and protect you and nourish you and clothe you and all that. It's a very nice little egg, and it's comfortable. But at some point, you hatch out and start crawling around and eating stuff on your own. You start reading, you start looking at the tube, you start doing all sorts of things. You hatch out as a maggot. And a maggot can now crawl around. It's got 2 dimensions, and it can ingest food at its will, and it defecates all over the environment. And some other smaller maggots can even eat your defecation and get some nourishment out of it. And, you know, you grow as you eat more nourishment, and you molt. You become a second-level maggot. You know, a bigger maggot. It even looks different. And the bigger you get, the more people you can, or more maggots you can crush with your weight.
World overrun with food.
Yeah, I mean, most people in the world are content to stay as first or second-level maggots. And they establish their own little area, and they crawl around there, and that's fine. And the guys that become 10th-level maggots are really big wheels.
So not only does he compare human beings to maggots, not only does he incite violence with bomb threats if the government doesn't act quick enough, but he also believes that jailing people for different political views on climate change is crucial. This is from the Huffington Post back in 2016, where he says Harper should be jailed over his climate positions. David Suzuki thinks inaction on climate change is serious enough to land you in jail, and he'd like to see former Prime Minister Stephen Harper behind bars. And he's not the only notable person to suggest that these pipelines may soon be a target for terrorists. Listen here to Jesse Ventura, who claims that the pipeline is going to turn into a target for terrorists, while I try to explain to him that man-made climate change is a myth.
We're going to build the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to take Canadian oil and send it to China. So why do we want to run a pipeline, which would be a perfect target for terrorists, wouldn't it? Who's going to protect this pipeline? You know, as I said, I'm a firm believer that there is climate change. We're in the middle of it, and we've got to stop it and do what we can. And I'm a firm believer that money should not necessarily be the driving force of the world, unfortunately, though, that it is and probably always will be.
The climate change issue seems to be that they're pushing this as when you have a global problem, problems require global solutions. Is it possible that people can also be being manipulated by, the climate does changes all the time, but whether or not it's done by human beings, could this be...
Oh, no, it isn't under any type of... There's no doubt about it. My friend, Governor, or now Senator Angus King, carries a plastic card, and you can see the graph charts. As carbon goes up, so does temperature, and it's not negotiable. It's the truth.
It's not negotiable, he says. Even though it can be argued that climate change is driving the CO2 levels. That's why there's a correlation there, not the other way around. But these people are not interested in negotiating. For them, it's their way or the highway. Or in some cases, no highway for you. Just recently I was blocked at an intersection by the Extinction Rebellion protesters, and when I tried to explain to him that innocent people are not the enemy, the government and the RCMP is, they launched into a tirade claiming that I and those around me are, in fact, not innocent. Guys, she's not the enemy. This is very unsafe at this point. Get out of the way. Get out of the way so she can get through. How does inconveniencing other people...
Actually, our government's actually inconveniencing us.
Yeah.
If you actually don't realize that our Earth is on the verge of extinction, then that's what's actually happening in our province currently. If you're okay with that,
So what are you hoping the government's going to do?
Complacent.
Please don't endanger anybody's lives out here. But I get the cause, I understand what you're doing, but inconveniencing innocent people is not a good way to go about this.
I need you to walk away.
I'm a colonizer.
Walk away.
Okay.
It's inconveniencing. They're inconveniencing us, the RCMP.
These people are?
The RCMP being in Wet'suwet'en territory are an inconvenience to us because they're endangering our freedom.
So
they're putting money into pipelines when we're in a climate emergency.
So
it
block
is our
them.
constitutional right
So
to
block
stand
them.
up for the earth and to stand up for indigenous rights and indigenous sovereignty.
So block the RCMP, not these innocent people.
They're not fucking innocent, just like you're not fucking innocent.
What did I do? So you see, these people think just like their hero David Suzuki does, that we are all the enemy. And they certainly won't stop at just blocking intersections, especially when one of their dear leaders is suggesting that violent bombings are coming next. So don't let this divide and conquer tactic shift your focus on who the real enemy is. The government. The sun is the main driving force behind climate change, not human beings. You are not the problem. You are not the enemy. Don't let any of these people convince you otherwise. Thanks for watching, guys. If you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, please head on over to pressfortruth.ca/donate. There you can make a one-time donation with PayPal, you can contribute Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, you can become a patron of mine by clicking on the Patreon banner. We also have a monthly reoccurring contribution area where you can contribute without contributing to a third party like Patreon. You can also do an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca, or if you like to keep it old school, you can send cash or checks or equipment or simply just words of encouragement to my P.O. box. Links are all located in the description below. So that's it for today, my friends. Stay safe out there, and please click that like button and share this video if you found the information to be useful. And stay tuned, we're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.